Thank you. I'm Jay Heck, Director of Common Cause in Wisconsin since 1996. And I just want to start off my remarks by saying that 20 years ago, it would have been inconceivable to hold a press conference like this to talk about the reforms, great reforms, that Senator Larson and others are putting forward today, because most of them were the current law back then. And as others have mentioned, Matt has mentioned, this repeals, or the actions of the Assembly, the Senate, and Governor Walker last November repealed the great laws that we had in place for a long time in this state. Back in the late 1990s, when I began at Common Cause, there was a bipartisan consensus, both political parties, to go much beyond these reforms. We were talking about 100% public financing for campaigns. We were talking about issue ads, requirements that the money that be used to pay for them come out of political action committees, not come out of corporate or union treasuries. The types of reforms back 20 years ago were beyond. What Senator Larson and the others here today are trying to do is really get us back to 1998, where we were before this deterioration in our campaign finance law. And as I say, most of these were the law back then. The most serious problem is, as Matt mentioned, the legalization of the coordination between issue ad groups and campaigns. And the example Matt gives us a good one. It was just 20 years ago that Justice John Wilcox of the Wisconsin Supreme Court won an election pretty handily in a big spending race, the first really that we ever had in Wisconsin. But his campaign and he were accused and found guilty of illegally coordinating with an outside special interest group who ran issue ads. Not express advocacy, but issue ads. And that was against the law. That was, as you know, changed in 2015. In a sense, it was done to decriminalize what had happened during the 2012 election, during the recall campaign, when Governor Scott Walker's recall campaign was being investigated for illegally coordinating with Wisconsin Club for Growth, in which millions and millions of dollars flowed in to his campaign. And of course, that same organization was thought to have also supplied a great deal of money to four of the current seven Supreme Court justices. So we're looking at getting back to 1998. I just want to say that these reforms are obviously well needed, they're overdue, and they're, I think, something that we would do well to go back and enact immediately. I just wish that there was the same kind of strong Republican support that there were for these common sense reforms that there were back in the late 90s. I'll just finish by saying that in 1998, in a special election in the 28th Senate District, when Judge Edelman was named a federal judge, there was a special election in which Mary Lazick defeated Brian Manthey for a state Senate seat that cost about $400,000. Everybody was so alarmed in this building that Governor Tommy Thompson called a special session of the legislature on campaign finance reform. And both houses of the legislature were controlled by the Republicans. They wanted to enact stricter limits on campaign contributions, require more disclosure. Now, it fell apart at the last few days over differences in opinion. But I just want to end by giving you all a copy of a press release that was issued by the chair of the Assembly Campaign and Elections Committee at the time, Representative Scott Walker of Wauwatosa. And he proposed at that time that all out-of-state groups report the source of their funds. He said, quote, "Our proposal would require every political group that spends money on campaigns in Wisconsin to disclose where that money comes from," said Walker. "For all we know, some of this money could be coming from foreign sources." And that proposal mirrors one of the proposals that's being introduced today. So hopefully we'll hear from the East Wing announcing their support for at least one of the reforms that's being proposed today. Thank you. and letter. I'll just put this up here, and you can get copies of it. We'll give you guys all one today.
Thank you, Jay. It sounds like we may have some bipartisan support from the governor, whether he recognizes it or not.